Like the rolling thunder from beyond the horizon, the siren call of ideological conflict echoes throughout the halls of Camelot. Today's debate is between SoulDiver and NSA, here on the Round Table Podcast. Let's get ready to rumble.
Well, there's a large phenomenon. I believe, and based on my interaction with one of the species that is here on Earth, that the Earth is being used in a proxy war setting. Extraterrestrials are manipulating people through the mediums of religion, esotericism, hermeticism, and occult, using holographic projection technologies, synthetic telepathy, and other sightings in the sky to manipulate and harass people, target them for MK Ultra as a result of the CIA providing them many people to research. They dose these people with psychedelic drugs, which allows the extraterrestrials to come in and play with them with holographic projections while they're tripping, because the drug itself affects our ability to interpret light. And so they play on that. That coupled with them following these, that's why you hear Alex Jones talking about drug cults, talking to interdimensional beings. Well, it's really not that. It's basically the cults are coalescing together. The CIA watches them, gives them the drugs, and then lets the aliens play and try and program them. So they're being programmed in a type of MK Ultra setting to spread disinformation, sow confusion in the population at large, etc., for the spirituality thing. Dr. Grassman, for example, their funding on DMT research was 100% by the Scottish Rite Masons. They're trying to control the release of the spirituality aspect of psychedelic drugs in interaction with the ETs, because it's simply technological. There's absolutely no spiritualness or magic or anything as far as I'm concerned. And that's my gist of some of what's going on with the psychological warfare that these ETs are in tandem with our U.S. Army and CIA and NSA.
Well, okay,
oh no, okay, well, hold on. Let me. Well, I wanted to give my take on what his position was, because that puts it all into perspective.
Let's do that.
So for what I believe his perspective is, and what he's been pushing for the last 6 months, is the definition of a shill concept that the CIA has been pushing out, that aliens are demons or interdimensional spiritual beings, and that Masons and Luciferian kid fuckers run the world. So that's the psyop, the shill that they're putting out there, playing the dialectic with these elites and these kinds of things. And he's even admitted himself that that's what he did as a career path, was a social engineering and testing for products at a major corporation. So these things are and psychology in his background. So these things are disinformation campaigns made to gaslight the target, the person that's been targeted by aliens, so that they will question their own reality. They'll go down this path of kid fucking, devil worshippers run the world type stuff. And it's the total shill story that is put out there. It's one of the many dialectics that's put out there. There's the snack dialectic, there's the squad dialectic, and I see it online in different personas all over the place. No offense to you, squad. I'm saying you have an esoteric hermeticist kind of viewpoint, stuff like that. And it is a dialectic of disinformation that's being put out there around the extraterrestrial situation. Okay, go.
Pretty simple. I basically just believe that essentially, as an ideologue, he regurgitates Freemasonic motivated psyops, and then ironically projects guilt upon the opposed. Basically, is the gist. So, if I tell him that aliens have more of a religious motivation behind it, he'll say that the presence of some sort of a theocracy is an alien psyop. So, uh, essentially, to get to the bottom of it, we'll have to source or at least extrapolate each other's hypotheses to see how accurate one another's points of.
You're cutting in and out, by the way, if you want to put your mic closer.
Relentlessly accused.
So
I
I'm an
essentially think he's an ideologue, basically. Like he's just a victim of a psychological operation, wherein he's been made to believe that this this thing in which he refers to as an alien, um, which is only a word that means foreigner, but essentially he believes that this alien, which is based off of more of a modern sci-fi archetype, is responsible for the past interactions with what we would probably classify as supernatural phenomena, to put it simply.
So I've, in the previous podcast, explained my operation that was run on me. So I have told you, yes, I was run in a psychological operation of which I deconstructed and decoded as a result of being a victim to this psychological operation. I had interdimensional quote contact with an extraterrestrial. I have many family members in the National Security Agency that have me involved. I have proof of these communications. I lived in a town that was a retirement community for military intelligence. I was hanging out with the children of CIA. So I'm not ignorant to the situation, and I have no reason to make these things up. I'm not an agent. I'm not paid for that by them or not. I mean, and I assure you, I do not want to experience what I've experienced. It's a disgusting amount of trauma to put a civilian through because some alien found me interesting. So the foreigner, yes, foreigner from another planet, another star system known as Zeta Reticulum, has decided that I am interesting, and because the Central Intelligence Agency and National Security Agency will do anything for their alien, is how they define these aliens, they'll do anything for them, including traffic Americans to be tested on like zoo animals. And that's what's been happening in the United States for the last 70 years since the cover-up started. These ETs are flying around our country, implanting people with neurocybernetic implants, using synthetic telepathy and psychic driving in attempts to program them, paid actors and cult members of these occult groups that they run to run a large social experiment that is effectively the root of the quote Illuminati bullshit. There's a lot of Satanism involved. There's a lot of Masonry involved. There's a lot of secret societies involved. But they are at the root of this quote targeted individual phenomena. And it's not just a psyop quote. It's a actual social experiment being run by the military and military intelligence. And it's
See, that's what's kind of funny is this is where it starts to parallel, right? You believe that the Freemasons are being played. I believe the Freemasons are being played. The difference is that we
they all
don't agree on what an alien, as you referred to it, characteristically, it can be described as characteristically. You use the words and you use constructs that are like modern, that didn't exist in past times.
I just said I'm not going to do this. I just said I'm not going to do this. We're arguing the definition of alien for.
Well, we're not. We're talking about the identity of things. So if you're referencing an identity, you're going to have to reference an account. And if the account isn't characterized as you're saying it is, then you can't just graft on an analysis from your modern stance and make that leap of faith and assume without having some sort of validity that that is, in fact, an extraterrestrial, as you'll say. Because essentially, like it, whether I use the word Rebel Angel or something like that, or you use the word alien, it's still going to come down to it being consistent with the accounts and the descriptions and a litany of other things. Like, for example, like all of these constructs that you keep drawing on, I know you may say the same, but essentially, like you have yet to validate the constructs that you're referring to, like the cybernetic AI, for example, like the aliens being cybernetic based and being integrated into some AI supercomputer that somehow has sway over the universal mechanics.
No.
Um,
Are you done? I'm sorry.
yeah,
See,
we'll feel free. I'm just saying you described it a number of ways, and the story seems to change every now and then. So
my
please.
story, okay, my story, no, that's false. My story has never changed. Not once has it ever changed. Okay, I've never said anything. I even have a recording from a year ago discussing what I've explained. My story does not change. Okay,
I'm
so please
talking
don't call
about
me a
your
liar or put words in.
conversations with me.
Hold on for a second.
Before you do, though, I would like you to know, NSA, that I'm referring to your and my conversations, and mostly our private conversations. So referencing the podcast wouldn't pertain to citing. But go on.
Well, see, there's a lot to the story, right? There's a lot to it. Okay, so again, I've had 4.5 years and time to sit and research this. That's over 100, 24 hours of of my day since this happened. I've been researching it, so I could effectively have a doctorate in ufology if you really want to. If you want to get down to the gritty, because I have been having the, I haven't had to work. I've had nothing but time to sit here and research this stuff. I've researched goddamn near everything about it, and I'm not pulling from stories and trying to assert my worldview into these stories. I'm taking from these stories based on my experience of the technology and interaction, and I know what I've seen. I'm not taking alien as a type of foreigner that was told to me by a 1940 psyop. I'm talking about a fucking projection blasted at my eyes that looks exactly like a tall gray alien with big ass eyes and a big head. Okay, like I know what I've seen. This isn't some Masonic trick that's being played on me.
And how about you, SoulDiver? How do you know the things that you know? Is there some experience that led you to believe what you believe?
Well, I've followed a lot of the conspiracies that are tied to a lot of the agencies and organizations he's referencing, and it's not consistent with his version of it. Some of the elements are the same, but in actuality, it's just that the whole disclosure thing is basically just a form of controlled opposition.
Well, because
And
they used to kill people that would talk about this crap or that were insiders. They would just kill them. They would just get rid of them, and because this is national security interests, this is psychological operation. It's an unconstitutional psyop being run. There aren't a lot of escapees from this program that have the wherewithal and lack of fear that I have to talk about it, because this is the Men in Black shit where they intimidate you. I've had black helicopters over my house. I get harassed every time I go to a bar. It's not, and I get an EMF weapon harassment to discredit me. It's called Project Majestic. It's made to ruin the contactee, so they sound like a fucking crazy asshole to the world. There's no tie-up that it's going to tie up to.
What did you say? You said Project Majestic?
Yeah. If you look at, there's a researcher called the Dark. Hold on, you'll like this one because if you want to get some good research on. There's a researcher called the Dark Journalist. He's on the YouTube. He has a channel. He's a very good journalist. He doesn't go into the hocus pocus, hokum shit. He's a straight guy about the fucking, pure descriptions of quotes that were said, things that were said, where and where. He's a good journalist, is what I'm saying. And he has uncovered a terminology called X-steganography that is inherent within the X projects and the Black projects. And Project Majestic is one that is made to. It's similar to Bluebeam to go and actually discredit these people. So this is where I get it from, is from the Dark Journalist. Okay, I'm not getting it from some paper I read on. I'm getting it from a renowned journalist with many writing.
Right, you're getting it from someone who claims to have inside information, but that's still just word of mouth essentially. So, journalists, whatever, like these are just labels. But my point is like there's still unverified claims.
Okay, NSA, both of you guys have echoing mics, so you cannot talk at the same time. Okay, so you have to not interrupt each other because it's going to cause distortion.
They're still unverified claims. Plus, if you followed the things regarding Majestic, you would see that was actually like revealed, is completely exposed, man, as being a plant, and that's why people originally were pushing all of this whole alien things, especially people that were inside like naval intelligence and other places. Like so, they were pushing that because it was part of a plant, just like Roswell was just basically a bunch of BS to basically build up the sci-fi archetype that you dub alien. Not you dub personally, but that you've adopted. So I'm just saying, like these, without all of
Yeah.
without all of these psychological operations as the basis for your archetype, all you have is the past, or accounts that have nothing to do, or UFOs, which aren't necessarily indicative of aliens, but we've been made to see it that way through pop culture and through novels and whatnot. I mean, like you can look at Robert Heinlein, who
Do you know?
who was
Do you know how much money is behind the cover up? Do you know how much money is involved? This affects the petrodollar, which is the backing of the entire global economy. Okay, so this technology, when it's out, is a global issue. So there's a billions and trillions of dollars for what Aviator just posted here. Contingency plan to contain or delay release of information called Majestic 12 is a disinformation ploy to delay and confuse the release of information should anyone get close to the truth. It was selected because of similarity spelling to the MJ12. It was designed to confuse memory and result in fruitless search for material which did not exist, which is what the ET situation sets you off. It's just what the targeted individual stuff sets you down. This road of esotericism or spirituality or predictive programming in sci-fi or Scientology or anything. They get you go down all the wrong paths when it's sitting at Area 51 and it's sitting at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base with Air Force Intelligence 25th and all this other stuff. Like these guys have an entire operation designed to shut people like me up and shield them the fuck out so that they just give up.
That's not what's being done, though, man. All these agencies that you're referencing are giving you a platform. That's what I'm telling you, and like you're regurgitating it because you've adopted that mind, and so now you believe that your experiences are indicative of aliens because you researched, like you said, and figured it out. But what you figured out was some sort of information that was already constructed.
SoulDiver, I've been implanted with a device in my home.
There's no way to verify that. I don't have any X-rays of anything. Like
okay, but I'm telling you what I
guys, hold on. When you guys are both talking, it's creating reverberating distortion. So you get 1 or 2 minutes, and then stop, and then give the mic over for 1 or 2 minutes. You cannot be interjecting over each other like this because you're echoing.
Okay, well, he's telling me something about myself that I experienced, and I don't like it because it's frustrating and triggering when you're telling me I just saw something go into my head that I didn't see go into my head.
Okay, so again, you guys are going to have to let me interject. So you're not going to go back and forth, okay? One say something, I'll say something, and then we'll go back and forth that way. So tell us about the squid thing one more time real quick, NSA, when you got the implant.
So it came into my room at 3 a.m. It looked like a smoking octopus. It was all black. It had a red eye, and it had tentacles that you could kind of see some of the suctions on it. And it would come up near my face. It would unfurl its tentacles and start spinning around in a circle like it was calibrating to go in me and spinning faster and faster and faster. If I looked away, it stopped. So and it had to restart the calibration. It's followed me around for 3 days in my house, outside my house. It even followed me to the bar when I went to the bar. And by the time I finally had to pass out, and I hear telepathically, they tell me, we'll get him in his sleep. And when I woke up, my eyes were sparkling and my ears were ringing, and I was receiving synthetic telepathy inputs from these ETs.
Okay, so now, Azrael, how would you explain this experience that he had?
You mean his implantation?
This black squid and then it followed him.
For all I know, he could just be making the elements of a story completely up. I mean,
sure, but say that you took him seriously. Take that possibility out of the play, and then just say if this did happen.
You mean from my perspective of not siding with his perspective and still analyzing experience.
I mean, put aside the possibility that you have to keep your mic closed at all times, Azrael, because it echoes. So only open it when you're speaking. So, again, yeah, you could just assume he's lying. He could just assume you're lying, but then we're not going to have any meaningful conversation under that pretext. So assume for the sake of argument that you were both telling the truth as you understand it. So if he had this experience of this black squid thing following him, and you assume he's not lying about that, then how would you explain it, if at all, in your system?
That's the thing though, is I can't, because if I were to put myself in his shoes and actually adopt his mindset, then it would just support the archetype, and that's my whole point. Is that it like what his experiences are only referencing things that are building on a top. It is essentially just like a compounding of
So
various psyops indicative of the alien archetype, like that are not like when he mentions the squid, like that's just a magnometer, like it's a component that's found in various devices, and it doesn't like it's like a cog in a machine. It's not necessarily
okay,
and I know how it works, and we can even post something that you can pull offline that anyone can read themselves, but it doesn't mean
can I?
that you have a device in your head that does what you say, and that just because there is such a component as a squid, that's proof of them. So that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So it's like so there's all these loopholes in
Okay,
your story.
let's let him reply. So let's keep it shorter comments, like 1 minute each. We're still getting feedback going on here, so we got to be really careful. You guys both have to keep your mics closed, only one at a time, and about 1 minute each. Okay. So go ahead, NSA.
Okay, so the ETs use allegory and communications with it. They were using the octopus because the Reconnaissance Organization uses it on their patch. It's the whole Cthulhu thing too. They use this as a methodology of control. I got my tentacles and everything. So they use this because they were able to turn that octopus, an image of a woman's face too. At one point, it looked like the Mona Lisa almost. So when I reference squid is the technology, okay? It's superconducting quantum interference device. We have one now at many colleges right now. It's something the size of a room, and it's an advanced fMRI brain reading technology. We now have the current technology through fMRI to render pictures of your mental vibrations using algorithms. So their mind reading technology is akin to this, in that it is a type of advanced fMRI mind reading that's able to extrapolate through machine learning into what you're imagining or thinking. So it's a type of mind reading through context, not like it's pulling out your memories or anything else. And that's why they use the synthetic telepathy in tandem with it. They pump your head in with a message, and they'll say something, and then they read whatever it is you're thinking about after that message hits your head. And that's their way of mind reading.
That's just a completely subjective analysis. Like you this is also the problem with your experience from my point of view, right? Like like now from my point of view, because I obviously don't accept this whole alien archetype, I understand either communicating with like either a wandering spirit, right, or a rebel angel. Okay, so like now that that's on the table. Okay, the problem with your story is that and let me try to find my train of thought here again. But essentially, you're saying that it leads you on, like psychically, if you want to use like a crude term, right? So it's like this being leads you on. So when you are witnessing or you're observing this creature, you have actually no way of verifying what you're looking at, because it's just telling you like whatever it wants to see, and like as if you would have any power to stop that. You say you do, but then you would have also been able to stop the experience to begin with if that was the case. And so I'm saying,
I did say
at one point, there's or another, there's no way for you to tell, and you also have to look at it from the position that I'm analyzing you from, which is that it's commonplace for angels, even rebel angels, to be able to manipulate their appearance. Essentially, like it's really not that difficult if you really think about it when you start getting to the applied sciences, when you understand how light and waves are involved. And I have a minor background in digital communication, so I understand how rendering and things like this work, and so I understand how you can compare this technology to it, but you're only describing like the borderline aspects of like physics or otherwise, and like you're not you're just essentially kind of committing the same guilt that you are when you vaguely describe an alien, because it's essentially it's a half truth. You're building upon something, facts that are there, but you're using it to assert this counterfeit, and that's what I'm saying is that this is part of the psyop.
So I just want to make a quick statement early on, right? So there's two different arguments here. If you didn't pick it up, SoulDiver is saying these phenomena are angels, fallen angels, biblical spirits, demons, and NSA is saying they're aliens, holograms, and psyops. So I've always wondered, and I'll ask this to both of you basically, is why can't it be both, and why are you so sure it's one and not the other? So, NSA, anyways, take your time, say whatever you want to say, but I just wanted to pose that question to both of you for the rest of the debate. Like, how can we not rule out that there, like, how do you know, SoulDiver, there couldn't be aliens and UFOs and also demons and stuff, and vice versa?
There very well could be UFOs, but that doesn't mean that
We're going to give NSA the mic now here.
All right.
So we've been gullible for thousands of years. They've been doing this to us for thousands of years. For even the concept of an angel or a demon or any of this has been put into our minds for thousands of years by these beings and these projections. Okay, I've seen them in person and physical. I've seen Crowley's Lamb, all this other shit. They use these technologies to spook us and confuse us and play with us. They call themselves playful tricksters and et cetera, et cetera. And they're mind parasites, right? So they're running around. They've been doing this for a long time. This is the biblical archon, whatever Gnostic demiurge shit. They chip people's heads and they read their minds and it uploads that into their AI and they play games with people based on this. And they use spirituality. They use all kinds of stuff. They can knock you out with an EMF weapon, wake you up. They can excite your vagus nerve, by the way. So your vagus nerve is what connects your stomach, your heart, and your brain. They can induce a panic attack with a 20 hertz frequency. Because the human body responds at different frequencies, right? The limbs are like 10 to 20, etc. Your eyes resonate at a 1 to 16 hertz. Anybody receiving synthetic telepathy input, their eyes will start vibrating and water up. So you can tell when, quote, agents are fucking with you. I saw it many a time when I was interacting with people at the bars while they were running these psyops on me. So these technologies mimic spiritual experiences. There's even a, quote, Godhead frequency that they can buzz in your head to give you a spiritual experience. They've been doing this to us for a long fucking time. There's talks of Kabbalic mystics that are, quote, astral projecting to talk to God. There's Siddhartha sitting there fasting, reaching nirvana. There's Muhammad in the cave fasting, speaking to Gabriel. There's Moses on Mount Sinai talking to God while tripping on DMT plants or whatever it is. There's Jesus's last temptation of Christ sitting with Satan on the hill, a hologram and telepathy. All of these things have been this stuff. That's why everybody has this imagination that there's demons and everything else, because we've been writing about what we've experienced for thousands of years. And now that we have technology to actually mimic these technologies, to think that they're anything other than technologically based is naive. I mean, it's like Santa Claus, guys. Santa Claus ain't real. You know what I mean? It's Santa Claus shit.
It's not
Many
naive,
of
though.
this stuff.
It's ironic that you say naive because, like I said before, like here's the problem: is that you're using religious accounts, mostly pagan, which is extremely ironic. You're using religious phraseology to assert a new age archetype. So when you say it's ridiculous, you're also unwittingly saying that your position is ridiculous.
That's a lie. I never referenced anything pagan.
That's not a lie.
That's
it's
the
just
Torah.
exposing a
Hold on.
contradiction
No,
in your
you
point.
were done. Let me talk. That was the Torah. That was the Bible. That was the
Okay,
Quran.
you guys, you cannot
The Bible,
talk
Torah,
at
and
the
Quran
same
are not
time.
pagan. The Bible, Torah, and Quran are not pagan. So you tell me it's a lie.
Actually, no. I'm sorry. You're grossly incorrect. The Bible is not pagan.
You just said that.
No, I didn't. I said you're referencing pagan accounts and you're using religious phraseology to assert your archetype. So what I'm actually saying is, like, look, this is what I'm
going to have to keep you guys both muted and unmute you both one at a time. Please do not unmute yourselves. I will unmute which one of you is going to speak because of this echoing, you cannot keep doing this. So we're going to give NSA a few minutes and then he can go. Or did he leave the room? No, he's still there. Okay, so NSA, you got a minute. Okay, I'm going to mute SoulDiver. And then he's going to get a minute. And then we're going to turn it over to the crowd.
What, I don't understand why I have to repeat myself. I just referenced the last temptation of Christ in the Bible. I just referenced the Quran's communication with Muhammad and Gabriel. I just referenced the Torah representation of Mount Sinai and Moses. That is not pagan, and he just said it's pagan. This is why talking with him is impossible, because he literally says something I just said is not what I just said. He's fucking gaslighting like he does all the time.
I see. Well, let's give him 1 minute to rebut to that, and then maybe we'll open it up for questions or comments from the crowd. So, SoulDiver, do you have a response to this?
Yeah, I'll respond to it, and then if I can, I would still like to give my summation earlier that I wasn't able to finish. But Yeah, it's not a mischaracterization to say that they're pagan, and it would take a lot longer to go into detail about that because essentially, when you reference things like the Quran, you're gonna have to fall back on the reality that it's invalid. It actually was never part of the biblical narrative. This is like you can easily prove this using the Injil. So like, but that's not part of this discussion. My point is that like we can always do this again, go into the historical aspects of it deeply and hit the technical points. But my point is that all accounts that you're using, like Crowley, for example, that's like a little closer to our times. Still, Crowley was an occultist, and he was into all of the pagan religions. He was a Mason. Same thing with Hitler. He co-opted Hitler and Mussolini, like 3 of my 6. He was an active agent, all right? So he went in there, pushed that. Same thing with the Beatles and pop culture. Like they pushed all of these occult ideas, and then you even look at Hitler, right? It's interesting how he starts going and chasing aliens, supposedly, right? It fits right in line with what you're saying, but you also come to find out that that whole war and a lot of other events connected to the alien psyop were all a part of one grand thespian act. If you actually read documents like Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, where they essentially explain to you that the whole war was staged as essentially a means to as a satanic organization to essentially attack the biblical narrative as the antithesis. And so that was the whole point. It was to weaken Christendom, as he says. And so this is just a specific targeting of it. And everything that the Masons, who are the ones who invented this alien psyop, represent is the antithesis to the biblical narrative. So like they're mortal enemies from even their perspective. So
Okay.
so what I was going to say is that when you reference these alien accounts, the main points, like the core characteristics of these archetypes that you utilize are typically satanic, but like in nature. Like you'll rarely reference and you'll reference the angel Gabriel, but you'll reference the angel Gabriel from the Quran. And so you're not actually referencing the biblical narrative when you do that. You're just confusing things. And this is what I'm saying is that
No, I'm
your
not.
arguments, you're compartmentalizing the reality that you are borrowing, like I said, asserting religious phraseology to assert your new age alien archetype, but you can't validate it without that back history. And so you are in fact borrowing.
Okay, so why don't you make your total argument, NSA, about not just what you think of Azrael's opinion, but what your overall message is to anyone listening to this
Well, I'm going to
podcast.
report to what he just said since we're having a discussion, okay? So, John Dee, the first 007, the 1500s, was, quote, channeling an interdimensional being. He started MI6, right? With some other interesting ones. The Vril Society and the Thule Society during the Nazis, right? Long-haired witches were channeling interdimensional beings, writing down images of UFO flying craft, right? They were the many a paperclip Nazi, and any discussion about them, we say we've got help from other worlds. So they were getting assistance from these, quote, interdimensional beings when it's just aliens. All the other stuff, all the other squad, please.
The other interesting thing I want to say, NSA,
I'm
is
not
like
done yet.
NSA wasn't done, SoulDiver.
Sorry. I thought you were done.
No, Squad interrupted me, and that's what he loves to do because they know derailing me gets me off topic. So all these interactions with these interdimensional beings are interactions with extraterrestrials through these holographic projection technology. There's no such thing as interdimensional. It's a lie. That's the psyop. That's the veil that they're trying to put on there. You know, the word apocalypse itself means destruction of the veil. So when the apocalypse happens, they're finally going to go, hey, it's all dumb shit anyway. Aliens have been watching us for a while. There's the Russian prime minister that's come out and said 3 races are on Earth already. The Paul Hellyer has come out and said 6 to 7 are on Earth. There's 67 in the galaxy. There's multiple. There's the Nimitz shit. The To the Stars Academy. Hal Puthoff. Hal Puthoff is a CIA physicist that lives 2 miles from me. By the way, I go down to his office and his bare ass mooned his fucking security cameras. He was in charge of the remote viewing project. Remote viewing is testing psychic ability, quote, quote, which there is none, as Ingo Swann, the best psychic on the planet at the time, taught them remote viewing. It's observational intelligence while interacting with the extraterrestrial technology. They put a augmented reality implant in your eyes and it can send movies to your eyes. That's why it's Area 51, Dreamland USA. They can edit your dreams and have been doing so for a long time. I take a look into Carl Jung's dream research if you'd like to read some total allegory as to why they do it. So remote viewing, all these things are just advanced cover stories so that interaction with these beings. Project Stargate's another one. There's all kinds of shit and psychic research and stuff like that that are extensions of all this MK Ultra research. And funny enough, by the way, Hal Puthoff was a high-ranking Scientologist. Who the fuck do you think L. Ron Hubbard was talking to when it type shit? He was talking to these aliens too. So all these cults and secret societies and religions and everything else is being just fucked with by aliens all over the place.
Yeah, it's just so funny though, because you're like all of the references that you just made were basically like all occult people, like all occult affiliated. Carl Jung, he's a Gnostic. He admits that in his books. Like, was it who'd you mention? Philip K. Dick, I think. So, like,
that's what I mean.
These are all people who are heavily into the occult. And here's the other thing that's interesting too, right? When you say things like Aleister Crowley's Lamb, or when you reference like archons, like you're literally referencing Gnostic ideology. Like that's their whole like religion is like that's where the term archon comes from. So here's where I'm going at with this, right? Is that your whole gray aliens, Zeta Reticulans, etc., all of these like anthropomorphic archetypes, they weren't existent back then. So they like the only like that's you literally keep referencing people who had contact with spirits. Like they didn't describe them as being anthropomorphic. Like they essentially like appeared to them. So it's like so this is what I'm saying. Like this is simply a manipulation of the mechanics of the universe, which like there's so much that we have to talk about, but there's just not enough time. But I mean, it's you're just drawing on occult theology and then basically rebranding it with your alien package and then just calling it that without actually but you could not accomplish any of that without having the foundation. So it's really easy to say that something in the past is this new thing now, but none of these accounts would agree with your characterization of not even the people you just referenced in modern times, especially not Crowley and especially not Jung, because they knew about aliens because they were around when those terms existed, and Jung described them specifically as demons, and he goes into specific detail about that. And he doesn't mean it in a psychological in some metaphor or anything like that. He actually means demons, and he stresses that. I'd have to go find a quote, but he basically to his audience, to his readers, wants them to know that he's not meaning that metaphorically, that he actually means that physically. And Carl Jung would be able to know the difference between a New Age alien archetype and ancient occult characterizations of aliens. I mean, he's so I mean, like there's like I said, you're still drawing on occult archetypes to a certain alien archetype, and like they clash with each other.
You just got through saying they were wandering spirits or angels. So I'm trying to explain why these occult things that people can't explain, spirits, etc., are just interpretations of extraterrestrial technology. I'm not referencing anything about occult shit at all. I actually hate the occult. I think magic's dumb, and the whole concept of this crap is ridiculous, and it's a total trap for these people because the interaction with these beings' technology can really mindfuck people. It looks like magic. They can read your mind with tech. It's crazy. It's like fucking magic, as the Air Force guys say. Like fucking magic.
What do you offer as an alternative? So you live on Earth, you are born, and then you sense that there is something beyond materialistic life, and so you might want to get into a spiritual life. What do you offer as an alternative to those people, since you think that they are being psyops?
Yeah, those people that I reference are Masons and occultists, watching Kushner, because the occult is controlled by the extraterrestrials. They're the ones that even inspire
the magic.
Squad, I'm not talking to you right now.
Here's the other thing, NSA. Like you're also neglecting other government experiments where they shut people's like hearts and brains down, and then they have the interactions with these beings. So their bodies are not active. So still, like, you can't account for that with your alien archetype either. You can't communicate with someone if your brain and heart are not working, NSA.
Look, what's released when you die, dude? What's released when you die? DMT, right?
So where you're talking about soul now?
No, I'm talking about a hallucination they had. And when you're in a hallucinatory state, these ETs can vibrate your eyes and mind to give you images.
No. These patients are dead, sir. They're dead.
Legally,
they're dead, and they bring them back to life.
Yeah,
they're
not
They
dead.
stop
Their
heart,
brain.
and
So hold on,
their brain is inactive. They're
stop.
dead.
That's a lie. The brain does
That
not
is
cease
not a lie.
function
That is not a
for
lie.
many minutes.
They run government experiments. They
Bullshit.
ran through the 60s and 80s.
For
It's
God's
not
sakes.
bullshit. It's not bullshit. And they do stop your heart, and you essentially come back with the story, and that's what these people have said. And like they do this with their upper elites. For you to deny that is ridiculous. Like there's a lot of information coming out on that.
Okay, well, they're being played with then. That's all I have to tell you.
So you're saying that the information that I have that was exposed through the government is BS, but then you're also referencing government information to assert validity for your case that the governments are in compliance with aliens.
I just got through saying it's called hexagonography. There's a whole majestic plan to disinfo and send you down the wrong ways. This is one of them. Afterlife, spirituality, all of it. It's all a way. Of course it is. Of course it is, dude. All ghosts, poltergeists, possessions. Like the possession at Fort Bragg, they're going to make a movie out of it. What do you think goes on at Fort Bragg? It's the head of U.S. Special Ops Psychological Operations. You really going to tell me some fucking spec op guys got possessed? They're playing around with alien shit.
Calm down.
I'm calm. You put words into my mouth all the time, and it's very frustrating.
No such thing, actually. No such thing.
So I've never quite understood why this conversation gets so heated, because to me it just sounds like you have different opinions, but for some reason it seems like, at least NSA, you get fairly angry at Azrael. But
Shogun, my life has been ruined by this, okay? Extraterrestrials have ruined my life on Earth, and I'm being told that my experiences are bullshit Mason psyop, okay? So if that's the case, whatever, but that's why I get triggered by it, because I have post-traumatic stress from the situation so badly that when people tell me I'm a liar, I can't stand to be gaslit and tell me I didn't see what I saw, because it ruined my fucking life, okay?
I'm not gaslighting you. I'm just pointing out flaws in your point of view, because we came here for the podcast. But look,
okay, but that's why I get triggered.
I also wanted to ask you a few.
So people that
don't interrupt, Squad.
No, go ahead, Squad. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'll get back to it.
So people that go into spirituality, the occult, or whatever spiritual path that they want, and they suffer because of that, because they got marginalized because of that, and they may have been traumatized by that too. So to them, you tell them also that this is bullshit. So you're gaslighting them too, right?
No, I'm not. What I'm telling you is that telling me that I didn't experience an extraterrestrial contact, that I didn't go outside after being told telepathically to look up and see 30 orbs floating in the sky in geometric patterns while being telepathically told things, telling me that I just experienced some spiritual thing. It's a spiritual. While they're showing me images of traditional gray aliens with big conical heads and oval eyes, and they're giving me fucked up dreams all night and telling me that I'm just experiencing a demon. Sorry, guys.
Yeah,
So,
but
okay,
you
so
do
what
the
about
same
so what do you
thing.
think about the Disclosure Project then, man? Because look, that should be proof that that this is all controlled opposition. Because you'll say, oh no, that's just to discredit people like me, but it's not discrediting people like you. It's giving people like you a platform. And I want to say, not only is Stephen Greer a complete and total shill, and you don't deny that, but there's this other big problem, right? There's this gigantic problem with the fact that Lawrence Spellman Rockefeller is the American businessman who basically funded the whole Disclosure Project, and we all know about the Rockefellers too, and he's definitely one of those guys. So it's not like again, Freemason activity, and Stephen Greer is also a New Ager. He's talking about communicating with interdimensional beings and things like that, and and I know you don't like that word, but the point is he's got degrees from what is it, Alpha Omega College, and he's in transcendental meditation and stuff like that. He's a total hippie, and he's merging this whole like secular profile of it, like of an alien with the occult, because they're one and the same. But the point is that like the contention with the dialectic is to essentially strengthen the revision. If you actually understood what the whole agenda is behind the Freemasons, which is to, like I said, to essentially hijack the biblical narrative to assert a satanic revision. That's why, I mean, think about it. There's absolutely no reason for them to allow any of any of those like biblical accounts to like remain, because they certainly don't use them. You'll say that they use them, but as I've shown you repeatedly, they don't cite the thesis. They cite the antithesis. So like their roles are defined, and the Satanists themselves draw from essentially like a aspect within the Bible, and they rep that identity. And so like there's this convergence between this secular archetype and this occult archetype, because in fact it actually is occult, and the convergence is merely a lure, a psychological operation to assert the revision. And that's essentially because, like I said, it has to do with this whole controlled opposition, where the Freemasons are controlling the expression of the aliens, and they're in contact, like
So
what these aliens actually are. So it's not, so alien is just a word, basically. It's a facade to essentially like disguise the satanic narrative, to essentially assert what the Freemasons are obsessed with, which is the Aquarian Age that officially marks the New Age from their occult calendar. And they believe that that's the year of their God's return, who they, in this case, they reveal what would be identified in the West, even though it's a misnomer, Lucifer. So Satan, Lucifer, whatever word you want to use, like most people understand that you're identifying the devil, like the head chief rebel angel, and that's what Freemasons believe per their interpretation of astrology, which is essentially a revision of the pre-Babylonian Mazzaroth, even though what you might call Enochian societies that predated Babylon or antediluvian civilizations inherited the knowledge of the stars. You can see the distinct lines between the two parallels of the narratives between the legacy of Cain and the legacy of Adam's righteousness, because they show up all throughout archaeology. Like that's why they have, that's why there was Teledan was found, and all these other archaeological digs that revealed that the biblical accounts, per the archaeological digs that have been wherein they've discovered these artifacts, verify a lot of these biblical accounts. So it's not that, it's not that like whether or not he agrees with it or not that he can wipe it out. And so the reality is there is an existence of these two parallels. And
Yeah,
Stephen
not to go
Greer
on for too
sides
long
with.
at a time. Pass the mic
Sorry.
back and forth, please.
Yeah, I'll close it out. So I'm just saying that Stephen Greer essentially sides with that antithesis, that occult. And like if you'd like, I can post anything you want. Same thing with Tom DeLonge. He's a Mason. Posting pictures in the text.
yes, okay. So anybody involved in the alien situation in the past, you gotta close your. Anything involved in the alien. So anybody involved in the alien situation in the past was a Mason. Okay, that's what it is. They have the ability to maintain secrets and everything else. Whether you want to call it their worship of Lucifer, that is the alien, or not, or whatever you want to call it, that's what's been going on. So, yeah, okay. Well, Mr. Richard Dawson, I appreciate your analysis, but it couldn't be farther from the truth. Controlled opposition, I agree. Okay, so I understand there's a lot of quote UFO Jesuses out there, right? Greer's one, Wilcox one. They all have their different dialectic they play. One has a storyline, the other's a storyline. Greer's actually more of the aligned with more positivity. He believes the aliens are benevolent, consciousness, and all this non-locality of consciousness discussion, which, by the way, is discussions they have in the Project Stargate research. So he's regurgitating research done by the U.S. Army, by Stanford Research Institute. So Greer is a dialectic that's being controlled opposition, as it were. But so another interesting thing, he did a display to Congress just before 9/11 about the UFO stuff. So between that and the Pentagon missing money, they knocked down the towers to distract from the story, because part of Project Majestic, we got to get the fucking eyes off this shit, because they don't want the entire global economy to fall. So that's the thing. Anybody that's into ufology at all understands There's technology, and Gru does this too. There's technology out there that would change the world and get us off oil, and that's why there's big interest to stop this fucking shit from happening. Plus, all these idiots in the army to do the cover-up are paid off by Standard Oil and the Rockefellers, and have been since 19 fucking whatever. They don't want people knowing about this because it changes science and in the future of the human species that can be less controlled by these, quote, Masons or whatever. The point is right now is that with our phones and everything else we have right now and all the sightings and experiences and things like that, the matrix of control, the matrix of disinfo is breaking down on people. The guys in the CIA are tired of doing some of this shit. They basically have thousands of paid actors running around major cities just fucking around with people with these aliens and shit, trying to spread it, as they say, so confusion in the population at large. To your point on Satanists, yeah, Satanists is an old religion dating back to Baal worship and other concepts of pyramid building pharaoh shit. Like, it's a structured society based on eugenics, based on inverting certain things, based on moral relativism, based on pushing solipsism in the levels of secrecy as you go up the tiers to make the tier below you controllable. So yes, I understand this, quote, Satanist ideology very well, and how it references to this whole pyramid scheme on Earth. And the secret societies do play a part in it. And to your point, Dr. Let's see, what's his name? Mr. Richard Dawson. Yeah, the terrible thing that happened in my life was the trauma from the alien. Like, they came in and they ruined my life. I was between jobs waiting to go to an interview at a perfect job that I'd be making $100,000 a year. They stepped in and opped me in the middle of preparedness to go to this interview, and I wrecked my career for it. Then after that, I got a DUI and 90 days in jail. So it's like I was really fucked over by the trauma that the the scenario put into me. You know what I'm saying? Squad, I've done meth, I've done LSD, I've done cocaine, I've done marijuana, I've done mushrooms, I've done all kinds of drugs. I've tried them, I've dabbled. I never got to junkie status, or there's what's called the stages of addiction, right? I was in what's called the chipping stage. So every now and then I'll fucking go on a weekend and party or something. That's when I was working. That's when I was between jobs, though. So I didn't touch any of this shit while I was working at Dell. So it was while I was between jobs, while I was waiting for this position to open up, and I was fucking around with some drugs, yes. But that's not the reason, and I'm not going to sit here and be told because I was on drugs, that's my excuse to make up this story. It's not a fucking story. I have the names of literally 20 people. You can do a quick FBI background check and find they are retired CIA or their father was CIA. And everybody involved in these programs has high-level clearance. And to have this high-level clearance, they watch everything you do, and the NSA calls it 3 stages of communication. So they can do a full background on you legally if you're within 3 connections of anybody that is what's called a requirement of national security. And these people that are in CIA have some of the top secrets in the country. And so if you're around them, if you're having a beer with them, you're on the list. And so I was close friends with many of these people. The town of Pflugerville in Austin, Texas is a retirement community for the CIA and military intelligence. I was around these people. There was a lot of eyes on the town in general because the world's largest international biker gang has their meetups there, the Banditos. And trust me, they're not all good guys. So DEA, ATF, there was the Waco shooting where 100 people got shot before that. And I did security for one of their parties. So to think that I wasn't being watched by the intelligence community as a result is going to be a ridiculous endeavor here. My connection in Intel, because they're playing a game, dude. Like they're doing psyops. It's Project Bartender. There's all kinds of bullshit. They buy up they run these operations in bars with the MK Ultra in the city of Austin. There's a CIA office in Cedar Park, and that's where they have all their shit, where they go and they do makeup, stagecraft, they do all kinds of stuff in their spy training, and they use Austin, Texas as a fucking place for spy training. There's so many contractors out here for the CIA. Like I said, Hal Puthoff's here for remote viewing. John Brennan, the head of the CIA, when this project started, went to college down the street. There's tons of the Military Innovation Center moved downtown Austin, a $30 billion investment by the U.S. Army. There's 2 large bases around here. So the whole town is a fucking psychological social experiment for this shit. That's why it's keep Austin weird. There's aliens flying over. There's people fucking around with these silly MK Ultra shit. They're drugging people. They're doing all kinds of shit. It's a fucking clusterfuck.
Wow. Still, I'm not sure what else to say. Can we turn the lines over and see if anyone wants to come on the mic and ask questions or comments from the audience? Does anyone want to ask a question to either SoulDiver or NSA or say anything about this?
Actually, I do. NSA, since you've had a lot of experience with extraterrestrials, can you give a very detailed explanation of how they look like, a description of how they look like? Very detailed.
Well, I mean, so I'm not much of an artist, so I couldn't draw it out. But honestly, if you Google Eisenhower alien, that little image of what they look like, that's about the closest like pop culture reference I could find that looks like them. Hold on, let me find. Like they have a slightly larger head than us. Their eyes are huge. Their mouth is tiny. The ears, you know, like the when I close my eyes and quote remote view, which means apparently I'm a psychic. Then, if you guys believe in that shit, I don't. It's an implant. I see a alien head with eyes nodding yes or no, and he'll respond to questions and thoughts and things like that when I'm quote astral projecting to these beings. But they're hominids. They have hands, legs, arms, etc. Like they have human body. They're not human, rather hominid body.
Thank you.
So they make alien technology very advanced, but they can only respond yes and no.
Well, no, they telepathically communicate, right? So they can synthetically telepathically tell me something to my ears. But the image itself is through pictures. So they only communicate through soundless picture. Now, when you're in altered states of consciousness or dreaming or stuff, they can send full-on videos. Like they show me images of pyramids. They show me a bunch of like 8 humans in a toga bowing before a fireplace while an obelisk came out, or a pylon in ancient Egypt. They've shown me all kinds of esoteric symbolisms through the technology. They've even showed me the image of a hand with the bull symbol, like a metal fucking, you know, all kinds of stuff. They're symbolists. They talk in allegory, and they counter mimic with their artificial intelligence to communicate with us. So, I mean, they have, you know, David Icke is right about that portion of how these technologies work.
You mean the same David Icke that said he was Jesus Christ?
Right. I am not aligning my thoughts with David Icke any way, shape, or form, but he describes counter mimicking of artificial intelligence in relation to this draconian symptom on Earth, and his reference to it is an appropriate one. There's bits and pieces from all these ufology Jesuses, and he's one of them. He's one, like between him, Greer, Wilcock, Emery Smith, Corey Good. There's a bunch of other ones. There's a bunch of other quote UFO Jesuses out there. Tom DeLonge's another one. All of them are controlled opposition, SoulDiver. They're all threatened with their lives.
How convenient that is from your stance, though. Like everyone who contradicts your position is controlled opposition, right?
No,
like but you can't even reference like anyone who's like legitimate. They can't have like the same basically gaps.
There is no one legitimate. Once the system gets you, there's trillions of dollars to get you. They're gonna get you in some way, shape, or form. They're gonna send people in front of you. They're gonna literally send anybody into your life and make your entire circle of friends part of the situation. It's what they do. It's an interest. It's more top secret than the atomic bomb. It's more top secret than the atomic bomb.
What Sir Price said. Then how do you like? Why are you alive? And how are you not just like? How does anyone know you're not co-opted? Given what you just said, they can get anyone that they want. Like, so what? Why you? Why not you?
Well, they have. That's why my life is ruined. Then when they're discrediting me through this schizophrenia simulation, they are attaching an EMF. This chip turns my head into a radio receiver, right? And so they use a technique called psychic driving, which was developed by Dr. Ewan Cameron in 1950 for MK Ultra, where they replay the same message over and over and over again. So every 10 seconds, my head is racked with an EMF weapon, and that's what these TIs report all over the place. They think it's research or whatever the fuck they think. But it's supposed to simulate schizophrenia so that my story is discredited and I sound like a Looney Tune.
Well, it's interesting, though, because if you start saying things like schizophrenia, then, like, maybe sometime we'll have to go into the history of psychology being adapted from demonology. So
I believe that a majority of schizophrenic research in the last 50 years is made up bullshit, but from interactions with these aliens. I think they've been flying around this country, mind controlling fucking people, torturing them until they act crazy and go get committed, and then have them experimented on further. And this chip is this neurocybernetic implant, remote neural monitoring for these people, mind parasites, Archon, whatever you want to call it. And they're trying to experiment on people to learn how to control people with it. And they put it in people for monitoring too. Like there's, they can track anybody. They can, it's the beast chip type stuff. Like I only
So what do
reference
you-
pop. Hold on, I only reference pop culture things and these people in the public because that's what we have to grab from to tell a story. So if I don't have stuff from the public to tell a story from, then there's nothing for us to talk about. So I'm referencing things that are happening in relation. That's why I use these UFO Jesus as controlled opposition, because once they hit the media, there's an entire fucking force behind that to either shill them, discredit them, push them up, feed them certain information. It's called feeding these people, like journalists, they feed them the wrong information so they think it's right, and they'll report the wrong information. Just like Lazar, for example. I think Lazar saw what he saw, but I think the whole thing was a stage for him to see, and talking about Element 115. I think he did see what he saw at Area 51, but it was staged for him so that he would be that guy that leaks it.
Yeah, but
So-
that's like the same thing. But the other day I heard you quoting whistleblowers, and you were talking well, you were talking about whistleblowers, or you were talking about people like, you know, mentioning it, like who
Provide the-
mentioned, like I'm not necessarily calling Podesta a whistleblower, but like you tried using Podesta as a credible source for knowledge of aliens.
Yeah, so Podesta, if you look through his emails, he's talking to Edgar Mitchell, Six Man on the Moon. He's talking to Tom DeLonge, who's now running the To the Stars project, which is a big public disclosure thing. And at the time, he was what? What was he? He was the chief of staff for the president of the United States on a second term. So he was trying to push this medium about alien shit out there, and he got fucking ruined for it. And if he didn't,
Tom
and if
DeLonge's
he's,
whole operation is ran by its government, fucking like it's co-opted. Like they admit that.
Right.
The things I posted in there admit that.
yeah, his story,
So
Tom
you're
DeLonge,
just
he wrote a book called Secret Machines, and it had the tech and explanations of some things that pissed off the DoD guys. So they immediately went to his house and started talking to him about it and said, all right,
So
we're going to tell you.
Tom DeLonge, who is a Freemason, is telling people about aliens, and he's legit, but Freemasons give out psyops about religion because they want to validate aliens?
Tom's been writing and talking about aliens for fucking a long time, and he doesn't need the money. He's worth over $60 million. He's doing this because he wants something to do with the alien stuff. He loves it, and he thinks it's important. He's a
what I'm
form
saying
of
is
control.
that-
All the guys that he got, Luis Elizondo, Hal Puthoff, all these guys. So even Luis Elizondo is another one to read. He's talking about how these beings aren't a threat unless they want to be, and all this other stuff. Well, I'm telling you of their interaction through MK Ultra. I mean, the CIA was
Yeah, but
feeding
you're
people to these
referencing
ETs to test
DeLonge.
on.
Were
You
there
actually
other
believe
people
DeLonge?
like you? Not
Yeah, sure there are, but they're in the program. So the program is
Before
designed
the
to where they
19th.
think they're the whole TI program itself is they target people and then they recruit them to do the stalking. And if they say yes to it, they'll do the stalking and playing around with it. A lot of them are military intelligence children. They're contactees. They're people that agree to it. They're told it's to fight terrorism, right? Because the whole program is designed as a terrorist pacification program. Because if you're always being watched by the government, you're not going to commit a crime type shit, or at least.
no, I am saying about ancient times like Rome.
No,
Like,
this isn't the only person to speak out about it. Like, there's plenty of people talking about the TI stuff. There was a guy that talked about SRI's involvement in Washington with the security guard companies. So they would run guys homeless, ship them to Washington, and give them a security guard job, and then they would socially experiment in public with that security guard to see what their reactions were and see how they're because that's what they're doing is researching social interaction and how
were
they
there
can control
people
social.
1,000 years ago? Were there people
What?
like you 1,000 years ago?
Oh yeah, well, I don't know this. Obviously, this is my conjecture. But when Jesus was talking to that guy, and it was like, "We are legion," who do you think that was talking to? He was talking to a bunch of fucking people that think they're working with the devil or whatever entity this is. So yeah, Jesus Christ himself was a TI, I guess. I don't know. Like,
Do you think he hallucinated a squid in his dream, Jesus Christ? He had a Motorola brain chip.
yeah, you can make fun of it all.
What?
You also weren't making
Okay.
sense when you were.
There's a lot of
referencing,
references in pop culture if you'd like some.
When you were
There's
referencing Tom DeLonge, like that just doesn't pan out, my brother. Like
Pop
Tom
culture?
DeLonge is a Freemason, and
Talking
the Disclosure Project. The Disclosure Project is a totally controlled opposition. But you were
Dude,
just
there's
now,
tons
you were
of-
just now like you were just now basically kind of vouching for Tom DeLonge's like involvement.
No, Tom DeLonge isn't that. He's a fucking rocker that runs around naked. He's not the most intelligent guy in the book. He loves aliens and shit like that. He's easily controlled. These people that are Masons are very easily controlled. All these people are easily controlled.
Yeah, but
You
my
can't
point
control
is that
through MK Ultra. You can't control an honest man, and you can't control a sociopath. And I'm an honest man. I don't lie. I don't steal, cheat, or kill type shit. I'm an honest person. They couldn't control me, and I don't fit into this archetype because I'm a good person and I don't want to fucking traffic humans. So that's why I haven't been quote recruited by these idiots.
right, but that's like you're just trying to appeal to people's sympathy when you say trafficking humans and stuff like that. Like
Because that's what it
these
is.
are all like very like creative and like sensational accounts,
No,
that you're claiming, but like you like I said, like you're not validating like this alien archetype, and like all of the people you mention are Freemasons, and you're not really debunking their loyalty to the religion. All you're doing is characterizing these entities that they're in contact with. But in reality, Satanists believe that they're in contact with fallen angels, and so or rebel angels to be more apt. So the point is that like we're both saying the same thing, but the difference is that you're characterizing them per the New Age, and all of the New Age people who invented this archetype that you're talking about, they never they never adopted the sci-fi thing. They all acknowledged it in a Gnostic, ancient sense that completely defies your archetype, and so your argument falls apart.
okay, so to say that I'm saying trafficking to pull at heartstrings, fuck you. Okay, so mind control is human
Calm
trafficking.
down.
Okay, so let me read mind control for you. Please don't interrupt. Human trafficking involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion to attain some type of labor or commercial sex act. Every year, millions of men, women, and children are trafficked worldwide, right here in the United States. It can happen in any community of any race, gender, or nationality. They'll lure their victims to force it. They'll look for people who are susceptible for a variety of reasons, including psychological, emotional vulnerability, economic hardship, lack of a social safety net, natural disasters, or political instability. They'll give you false promises of a well-paying job, a romantic relationship, and other things like that. So they use this mind control to see if they can set people up with a girlfriend, to see if they can get you recruited or anything. So to say that this isn't trafficking, I'm not pulling at heartstrings. Mind control in this research, using these tactics with federal money, is state-sponsored human trafficking. By definition, it's not me pulling at heartstrings.
Only according if you're speaking about the technical language of what you're claiming. But you're saying it for effect. Was it
I'm not.
in kind of an appeal to sympathy?
I'm being
but
trafficked.
It's not. But it doesn't have anything to do with you characterizing the alien. So if you don't want to do it, it's fine. But like, let me ask you, what is your take on Geordie Rose then? Because Geordie Rose is also into AI supercomputers, and same thing with Musk, and like those guys are occultists. So
I'm not. I am being trafficked by extraterrestrial assets to the CIA in the United States while the U.S. Army covers it up. I am a human trafficking victim in this program. I'm literally a slave. And I'm not trying to pull at heartstrings. That is the case. My head is racked every day with this shit. They're trying to coerce me and alter my reality and play mind games with me and paid actors and all this bullshit. I'm being trafficked by the Army because of my fucking family's NSA involvement, I guess, and all this, the reasons for this starting. It happens every day. There's literally, quote, 160,000 TIs in this country, right? Not all of them made the connections of mind control, extraterrestrials, and all these technologies being used. There's a lot out there. There's a lot of discussions out there, and it's not a spiritual war.
That sounds
so
fake.
you accept the idea that like millions of people could be deceived of a lie, right? Obviously, that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. So then there's no so then why is it hard for you to accept the possibility that you could have fallen under the spell of a psyop, considering that even sometimes when you yourself reference World War II, you sometimes reference the official war narrative, but that's not indicative of what actually happened. You don't really go into the whole Crowleyan thing a lot, and like you oftentimes will like reference the dichotomy. There actually were some sort of nationalist dichotomy when that was just an internationalist tension-racking campaign. If you actually read Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma, you would understand about the 3 world wars and how you can see essentially how this is. So the difference between, like what we're saying once again is that you're taking aspects of reality that do exist and you're placing this revision atop of it because there's no basis for that revision in history anywhere. So that's what I'm saying. So I just want to, I'm looking for
so
some sort of
surprise
where
they target
where you can characterize this outside of the context of this sci-fi creation.
Okay, it's not a sci-fi creation. Again, I know what I saw. Fuck you, dude. Okay, so aliens and
Calm
what
down.
you're talking? Why they
Calm
target?
down.
No, he's telling me I'm a liar, and I don't want to fucking listen to him. So, do they exclusively
Yeah,
target
but
the
don't
family
be
members of
vulgar.
Agent Squad? Please stop interrupting me. Surprise! In regards to your question, I think around 1955 is what the communications were, that there was some kind of contact with Eisenhower, and the Zeta Reticulans were the only species of the three that didn't make us denuclearize in order to support them. This is what I've found through research. It could be a little off.
What was
There's the J-Rod
what was the
stories.
catalyst of it? Like, why not in 1925 or 1780?
47 Roswell. So the CIA was created specifically by Truman to handle the alien situation, along with the NSA. So they were it was literally created to handle it and figure it all out and go from there. And then by 55 came around, they were finally ready to do some kind of treatise with these beings. Is how the story goes. As to why they target the family members of it, anybody who has this clearance is going to get targeted, whether or not whether or not they psyop them or do anything with it or not is the question. But if your dad works for Lockheed and has top secret clearance, you have a big dossier basically type shit. Anybody that's
My uncle works for Lockheed right here
Well, there
in
you
Florida, and I don't. Needless
Well-
to say, I've not experienced anything remotely like that.
Well, that's what I mean. You don't get opt, but because you're part of the gang, as it were. Like you get left alone in most cases. They don't like me. Surprise! They don't like me at all.
Why?
Like they have a for me because of my attitude, I guess, about secret intelligence and being infiltrated in my home and abused and the trafficking operations they're running. I don't align myself with the
But you can't.
the empire.
You can't not like it before it happens. So why did they pick you initially? When I've been
Because-
unscathed?
Because of Paul. I mean, my family member, man, the guy's a fucking psychopath. He has PTSD real bad, and we had an argument over the phone. He got drunk, and he called his buddies in NSA, and they started to have you watched. And then when they're having you watched, I had the proximity to this town with a bunch of intel guys in it, because he's not from this town. And so I was around an operation already running that was dealing with, biker gangs and shit like that. So I got fucking hella targeted, and I was riding a motorcycle at the time. They thought I was a fucking coke dealer. They were telling me they thought I was. They tried to even set me up with an undercover agent to buy like thousands of dollars in cocaine so they could pinch me. And this was before the alien thing, by the way. But no, I've never.
I mean, not to divulge too much information about myself, but old Prize dabbled in some illicit revenue streams back in the day. I mean, with my uncle working for Lockheed and my brother-in-law, my only brother-in-law, being a major in the Army, wouldn't that have put me in your shoes?
You could
This
have.
is before I joined the Navy. I mean, I was just a civilian at the time. I joined the Navy relatively old.
Go Lockheed.
You could have gotten targeted as a result and coaxed into that life. I mean, I don't know. Like they could have. They usually target people that are addicts. They like addicts because they want to do the.
Well, I wasn't an addict.
Or dealers or anything like that. They want to be able to guilt you. Part of brainwashing is to apply guilt. So they want to be able. They need, in order to brainwash you, they have to have a guilt there.
That's why you guilt everyone else.
Like racism or anything like that. I don't guilt anybody else. Who am I guilting?
Yes, you do.
I have
You
a
do.
question, right? So like this is obviously like like the way that you're expressing yourself, right? Like I'm not gonna say whether or not I'm not saying you're being disingenuous, but I'm not saying that I side with your story either. But this is obviously something that you're
Oh my God!
to. Hold on, this is something that
Sorry.
you're obviously having an emotional reaction to. Okay.
Yeah, it's my life.
No. So you hate
wanna
the
tell me I'm lying?
Freemasons. You hate the Freemasons because essentially, like you're saying that they run defense for these aliens, as you
I
call
never
them,
said.
right? So, well, but you did though. You said that
I
essentially they're
never said I hate the
disguised.
Freemasons. You put words in my fucking mouth.
No one's saying that that's what you literally said, but that is what your argument asserts: is that
It's
the
not-
Freemasons come to the aid of keeping the whole alien thing under wraps. Like we went over this the other day. So my point is that being so, you did say there's all this involvement with them and whatnot. So the point is, knowing that,
hold on.
right? Whether you feel that they're goofy or whether you feel that they're a part of the conspiracy, like why would you ask a Freemason to like offer you help? Like in your in your individual life. Granted that you're supposed to be aware that they're conspirators.
Okay, my grandfather was a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemason and an executive for ITT, a major conglomerate multinational telecommunications company. I'm not a Mason. I have a cousin that's a Mason and all these other things. Masons are a part of government as a result. Our founding fathers were Masons. Masons are deeply ingrained in our society. This isn't about me hating Masons. If anything, I would ask a Mason to help me because, hey, my grandfather gave 40 years of his life to the craft. Could I get some help from you nepotistic fraternal order that's supposed to look after family, which they don't, and this is proof in the pudding. They also don't give a fuck about bloodlines. I'm a bloodline as well. None of it matters is what I'm trying to say. They only care about themselves. I don't hate the Masons. I don't believe in. I think a lot of their belief structure, like Lucifer and all this stuff, is heavily influenced by aliens, and as a result, they're a little misinformed, just like everybody else in the planet is. But that secret that General was talking about, if everybody knew it, there'd be no more war. Well, that's probably that we're not alone in the universe would be the answer to that. Because you wouldn't have racism. All racism would go away. All our fighting and bickering would go away when we were told there's 67 races in the galaxy, right?
That's the whole point of the alien psyop, is to assert essentially like global governance by getting tension-wrecking campaigns with all of the wars, which ironically, like I said, fits in line with Albert Pike's Freemasonic agenda. Like the point is that your whole alien psyop overlaps with the Freemason agenda, like it was a damn like blueprint. It just like lays over the damn thing. Like everything is completely consistent with it. That's I just how you cannot see that, how there is a complete difference on your and my stance, and everything you're saying is completely in line with the antithesis, and like you don't seem to question that whatsoever. Like and then you try to muddy the waters by mixing the two, by confusing them, by trying to assume that the narratives are indicative of the same thing, but they're not. They're not, and there's nowhere you can cite in history where it's accounted that way.
Masons are involved again. It's a fraternal order within these governments, and it's like the secret oaths and secret shit, like JFK stuff. Yes, I believe there's an overarching global conspiracy, and it's around aliens, and it does involve Masons. It involves the Jesuits. It involves Chabad Jews. It involves the Muslim Brotherhood. It involves the White Dragon Society, the Yakuza, the Mafia, Cosa Nostra, all the fucking Mexican cartels. Yes, there is an overarching governmental conspiracy. It involves a lot of these major corporations and all these other things. Because the aliens are here, all these people, Chabad Jews, they're just mystics. A lot of the mystic schools that people go down are, definitely involving these ETs, because a mystic is in communication with gods, which are these ETs technology. So whether you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, there's nothing about Jews, Dawson.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about.
But they're all intertwined. I mean, well, so the Masons, for example, they're in their book. Their book is literally the description of how to rebuild King Solomon's temple. So there's Jerusalem stuff involved. There's ancient esoteric stuff involved. There's Knights Templar ranks and things involved. So yeah, Masons are all involved in this crap. But not most of the Masons, and it's not the 5% only know about it, but some don't, some do. I mean, Masonry is separate from the actual compartmentalized siloed secrecy within the U.S. Army and U.S. government, rather. So there's a lot of checks and balances.
That is absolutely not true. Not true.
Oh yes, it is.
No,
there's one thing that
like the occult is not compartmentalized from government. That's absurd. That's absurd. Like all of their infrastructures are funded by special interests. So you have the entire United States government is funded by special interests. You have no idea what you're talking about. The entire economy weighs on special interests.
No, the entire economy does not.
It absolutely does.
The economy is a speculative economy that's going to fall apart because we're printing money.
Yeah, by intention. But look, here's what else I wanted to say. Right? Like, didn't you say that you believe that there's some disclosure?
SoulDiver, hold on. So this was really interesting. I think NSA is at his fill of it, though. So I wanted to thank you guys both very much for doing this event. We can kind of get this whole argument out once and for all. Does anyone in the audience want to have a question or a comment or continue the discussion?
Yes, I would like to have a comment, please. If we suppose what you just said is true, then why they are fighting each other, and why they are letting you guys speaking, and how many do you need people to follow you until you be a real threat to them?
Well, it's the martyr situation. They don't want to martyr people like me because there's people that would miss me and talk about it and say whatever. But that's why they drive them crazy and isolate you, so they can test on you and discredit you. How many people I would need? Oh shit! I'm already famous in the intelligence community for a reason. That's another reason why they don't do things, because if they did, they'd probably have a big infighting about it, because I don't. There shouldn't be any reason. It's literally to protect this asset bullshit. The guys in CIA and some of them do, but the guys in the town and stuff like that, they didn't want to do this to me. They didn't want to run me through this or get me involved in this. But they're so paranoid. They think that I would be like They constantly say, I don't trust you, don't trust you, don't trust you. So they're just gonna leave me in this program until I make loud enough fit about it to finally either stop it, pay me off, or kill me. And I don't really care which one, because I just want to move on with my life. I hate it. The aliens are evil. They're malevolent. At least these Zeta Reticulans. As far as what people need to understand, they're not our friends. Not all of them. There might be some good braces out there, but whoever the fuck's working with our army is a really, really bad person, being incredibly malevolent, incredibly ignorant, incredibly arrogant. Thinks that humans are just animals to push around like dogs because they can program us with this MK Ultra shit, and they abuse our bodies with it, and minds, and traffic us effectively. So there's a lot of people that are scared involved in it because they think the aliens will like go kill them or knock a nuke out of the sky or some other shit. Well, whatever. I don't really. I just don't care anymore. I mean, they've ruined my life entirely. Yeah.
Don't you actually believe in some form of disclosure? You said that there's.
Well, yeah, there's soft disclosure. There's a lot of stuff going on with the disclosure stuff. That's like, it's called a soft disclosure because it's controlled. Like the Pope went to Antarctica, Buzz Aldrin went to Antarctica, John Kerry went to Antarctica. All these people were going down to Antarctica.
Well, so there you go. The Pope is a
Freemason,
so.
Oh, they're gonna control it somehow. I don't care if they control it. We're gonna find out anyway. They can't control truth. You know what I mean?
Well, didn't you like line it up though with like within the next few years? I thought maybe it was
within our lifetime. I said.
Okay, so should we call this one in here?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Okay, so thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate you, NSA. Thanks for getting your story out. Thank you, SoulDiver, for your side of the story. And thanks to the live audience, the recorders, watching Kushner. You can find this on YouTube, and it'll be on Podcast Addict, Podbean, and the original content channel of the Roundtable Discord server. You can find us through Conspiracy at Discord, or just Google us, Roundtable Discord. So thanks very much, everybody. We'll call it in here, and I'll see you next time.